Assalamu alaikum. My name is Sheikh Azara. I am the program coordinator of MBBS program and also the course coordinator of the Anatomy and Physiology in the College of Nursing in Islamabad. In Anatomy and Physiology lecture of the series, today is the lecture number 5. In the lecture number 5, we will go to learn about the clavicle bone. The common name of this clavicle bone is called the collarbone, and the another name of this bone is called the beauty bone. And this bone, the clavicle bone, is the type of the long bone. This is the only one long bone in the human body which is situated or located at the thoracic cage, at the front of the thoracic cage in the horizontal way. But all other the long bones of the appendicular skeletal system, they are mostly situated or located in the vertical way. So the collarbone is the only one bone which is situated or located at the front of the thoracic cage in the whole. The name of the collarbone is the clavicle bone, and this clavicle bone is derived from the Latin word and from the Latin word of the clavica. And the clavica means is the little key. When human body, when the humans are move their upper arm in the abduction way or in the adduction way, so this clavicle bone is moved like a key, just like to open to the lock. So it is called the clavicle. So the clavicle is the only one bone which is in the human body. The ossification of the clavicle bone is the first bone which is the ossification of the clavicle bone, but it is and the last one, the clavicle bone. So the clavicle bone, if you see the clavicle bone, it is take the part in the like a stud. Stud means it is give the protection and give the assistance to the upper arm, the movement of the upper arm and the joint of the upper arm, attachment of the upper arm with the axial skeleton, with the sternum. So the clavicle is just above the first ribs, just above of the four ribs. Now the clavicle, how you can, this is the best question which is the anatomical and the anatomical viva. The examiner asks from this, tell me the name of this bone and how you can identify it is belong to the right side or the left side. So this is the clavicle bone. If you see the clavicle bone, it has the two curves in the clavicle bone. It has the two ends. If you see the diagrammatic structures, it is the italic letter like a S. Is a S shape and italic letter of the just like S. So in the S shape, this clavicle bone, it has the two ends. The end which is on the lateral side, which will goes to join with the scapula, with the acromion process of the scapula bone. It is little bit flattened in shape and more in curve in shape. And this flattened shape of the clavicle bone is called the acromion end. And the other end of the clavicle bone, which is little bit rounded in shape and straightened in way, straightened in shape and rounded in shape, which is will goes to attach with the manibrum of the sternum bone. This end is called the sternal end. So with this sternal end, when it will go to join with the sternum, the end of the clavicle bone, the sternal end of the clavicle bone, it will go to join with the sternum bone. It will make the sternoclavicular joint. The acromion end of the clavicle bone, which will goes to attach make the joints with the acromion process of the scapula. It is called the acromioclavicular joint. This end will make the acromioclavicular joint. Now, in the clavicle, if you see the clavicle, it is situated at the inferior surface of thoracic cage, it is subcutaneous bone. You can feel it, the portion, the elongation of the clavicle bone by the palpation. So if you see this clavicle bone, you see it is a S shape. Now see it has the two convex. It is a two curve. The one curve, the inferior curve. This is the inferior curve, and this one is the posterior. This is the posterior side, and this the another curve. Both are the inferior portion. This is the posterior view, posterior portion of the clavicle. Now, in the anterior side, if you see the anterior side, it is a convex in shape. The anterior side from the two-third of the middle towards the lateral side, this portion is convex in shape. This curve in convex curve. Convex curve, from the two-third portion of the clavicle bone from the interior side is convex in shape. Okay, and the one third from the interior side, this one, the 1/3 portion is concave curve. At if you see over here is a 2/3. The 2/3 of the clavicle is a convex in shape, and 1/3 of the clavicle bone is concave in shape from the interior side. And from the posterior side, if you see, this is the posterior side, this is the interior side, and this is the posterior side. From the posterior side, it is the concave. 2/3 is concave curve, and 1/3 is convex curve from the acromion. 2/3 and 1/3. 2/3 from the interior side, it is a convex in shape, and 1/3 from the interior side is a concave curve in shape. From the posterior side of the clavicle, the 2/3 portion is concave in shape, and the 1/3 is convex in shape. Now, how we can identify this clavicle bone is belong to the right side or the left side. So, if you see is a two, the one is the straighten in shape, more in convex in shape, and this one is the flattened one, is the acromion end. The acromion end of this clavicle bone always keep on the right side, on the lateral side. This acromion end kept on the lateral side, and you see at the inferior border of the clavicle bone, if the see at the inferior surface of the acromion end is a tubercle is here, and this card is conite tubercle, and this conite tubercle always keep on the inferior side. So you can identify this is the right side clavicle or the left side clavicle. So this clavicle is belong to the right side of the on the clavicle. If you see in the clavicle, it has two portions. The one portion, the two-third portions is the rounded and cylindrical in shape. it has the two end. One end is for the external end, which is will goes to articulate with the manubrium of the sternum bone to make the sternoclavicle joint. It is the other end which is a flattened in shape, more broader in shape. This is called the acromion end of the clavicle, which will make the acromioclavicle joint. Now the 2/3 portion of the clavicle, in the middle of the shaft of the bones, the shaft of the bone is more in curve in shape and surgical in shape of the shaft of the clavicle. So if you will take the 1/3 portion of the lateral side of the clavicle, which is the flattened in shape, and this is flattened in shape, which is a more in curve way. So this flattened in shape is called the acromion end. This is the acromion portion. The acromion portion, if you see, the acromion portion is a concave from the interior and convex from the posterior. Convex from the posterior and concave from the interior. So it has the two border and two surface. The acromion end of the clavicle bone has the two border and two surface. The upper border, this area, the upper surface is called the superior surface, and this surface is called the inferior surface. And this is the sharp ridge-like structures at the interior concave area, convex curve area. This is called the interior border, and the posterior side is a rough-like structure. This is called the posterior border. Okay, in the interior border of the clavicle, of the acromial end of the clavicle bone, it is for the attachment of the, if you see this one, the interior border, the concave portion of the acromial end of the clavicle, this border is for the attachment of the deltoid muscle. For the attachment of the deltoid muscles are attached. The posterior side, the posterior border of the clavicle, this one, the posterior border of the clavicle, this one, which is rough in structure, this border is for the trapezius muscle. For the trapezius muscle and trapezius ligament as well. Trapezius muscle and for the trapezius ligament as well. Now we will come up on the inferior surface. If you see, in the inferior surface is the trapezius line as well. Here at the posterior side, at the inferior side, if you see over here, it is a trapezius line here, trapezoid line, and this trapezoid line is for the attachment of the trapezius ligament. The acromion, to make the more joints is stronger with the acromial process of the scapula. This is a trapezoid line, which is where is the trapezoid ligament are attached over here, and this just at the medial side of the trapezoid line is a tubercle is here, and this tubercle is called the conite tubercle. This tubercle is called the conite tubercle. This conite tubercle is for the conite clavicle ligament attachment. This conite tubercle for the attachment of the conite ligament, which will make the coracoid joints. Okay, which is take the part in the clavicle joints. This is the conite ligament, and this is a conite process, the tubercle. This conite tubercle is for the attachment of the conite ligament. If you will come of the in the shaft, in the 2/3 portion of the shaft of the clavicle, you see in the from the interior side is a convex in shape, from the posterior side is a concave curve. So it is mostly is a rounded and rounded and cylindrical in shape. This clavicle from the shaft in the 2/3 is a rounded and cylindrical in shape. It has 3 borders and 3 surfaces. It has mostly some books it is written the 4 borders and 4 surfaces. 4 surfaces and 4 border, but in the some books they are the 3 surfaces, 3 borders. At the front side you see is a sharp, is a ridge over here. This is called the interior border, and this one. At the superior side is another border is called the superior border. At the posterior side it is called the posterior border, and in the inferior surface is a groove over here between the interior border and the posterior border is a surface is here. This is called the inferior surface. Now between the interior border and the superior border, the surface is called the interior surface. Between the superior border and posterior border is another surface. This is called the superior surface. And between the posterior border and the inferior border this is called the posterior surface. So it has the 3 borders and 3 surface. The interior border, superior border, posterior border. Now in the surface between the interior border and the superior border, this surface is called the interior surface. The surface between the superior border and the posterior border, this border is called the superior surface. The surface which is present between the superior border and the posterior border, this surface is called the superior surface. The surface which is between the posterior border and the inferior border, this surface is called the inferior surface. If you see in the inferior surface is a groove or sulcus is here, and this groove and sulcus is called the subclavian groove. This called the subclavian groove, and the subclavian's muscles is attached over here. Now in the interior surface, in the interior surface of the shaft of the clavicle bone is the interior border. This is a ridge-like structure. This interior border is for this one. The interior border of the clavicle bone at the convex curve area. This is for the attachment of the pectoralis major muscle. For the attachment of the pectoralis major muscles. And if we see at the posterior side is another posterior border, and the posterior border is this one. The posterior border is for the attachment of the sternocleidomastoid muscles. SCM muscles. Okay. Now you see at the external end is another articular facet is over here, and this articular facet, if you are looking here, this is the articular facet is here, and this articular facet for the first costal ribs, If you could go on the lateral side, on the posterior side, it is another is the tubercle, and this tubercle is called for the costocavical tubercle. For the costocavical ligament attachment for the clavicle ligament attachment, for the costoclavicle ligament attachment. So this is all about the today is a very short lecture for the today. Is all about the clavicle bone. Just to summarize the clavicle bone. The clavicle bone is the type of the long bone. The common name of the clavicle bone is the collarbone, or the other bone is called it is also called the beauty bone as well. The clavicle bone is the only one long bone which is present or situated at the thoracic gate in a horizontal way, but all the other long bones are situated or located in the human body in a vertical way. So the clavicle bone is the first bone which is start the ossifications. At the ossification is start the first one is start the ossification in the human body, and it is the end in the last one. It is the end in the last one, 21 or 22 years of the age. So the clavicle bone, if you see the clavicle bone is provided the stirred. Stirred is just like if you in the astronist or in the engineering, in the aero engineering, the stirred is the wing-like structure which is provide the support the wings of the aeroplane. The stirred means the clavicle is provide the attachment of the upper arm with the axial skeletal system. So it is provided, the clavicle is derived from the Latin word of the clavica, and the clavica means is a little key, and when you move your upper arm in the abduction and adduction way, then the clavicle is moved just like to open the lock, just like the key, move like in the axis to open the key. So if you see the clavicle have the three portions: the external end and the acromion end, and the middle one is the shaft. The external end of the clavicle is little bit rounded in shape, and it goes to articulate with the manubrium of the sternum and make the sternoclavicular joint. And the acromion end of the clavicle bone is a little bit flattened in shape, and it will goes to join with the acromion end of the scapula to make the acromioscapular joint. Okay, now the shaft of the clavicle, if you divide the shaft of the clavicle in 2/3 and 1/3, the 2/3 of the clavicle shaft is a rounded and cylindrical in shape and compact in compositions, and the 1/3 portion of the shaft is a flattened in shape, which is make the acromion end. It has the three borders in the shaft. If you will take the shaft of the clavicle bone, it has the three borders: the inferior border, the superior border, and the posterior border. The surface which is present between the interior border and superior border is called the interior surface. The surface which is present between the superior border and the posterior border is called the superior surface, and the surface which is present between the posterior border and the interior border is called the inferior surface. So it has the three surface and three borders, but in some books it is written the four surfaces. Okay. Now in the interior surface, if you see interior surface, which is the convex in shape, and from the interior side and from the posterior side is the concave in shape. The interior surface is the interior border, a crisp-like structure. This border is for the attachment of the pectoris major muscle, the pectoris major muscle which is present at the front of the thoracic cage. And from the posterior and the superior border, and the posterior border is for the superior and posterior border is for the attachment of the SCM muscle, sternocleidomastoid muscle, which is originate from here and goes to attach at the mastoid process of the temporal bone. So another is another tubercle over here, and this tubercle is the articular fascia is here. This is the for the attachment. Another area is here is the attachment for the styloid muscles. sternoid muscle, and this sternoid for the attachment of the sternoid ligaments. These ligaments will go to attach with the sternoid process of the temporal bone. And at the sternal end, another is articular facet is here. This articular facet for the first ribs. So, if you will come up on the acromion end, in the acromion end, it has the two border and two surface. The interior border, which is at the concave portion, is the interior border, and the posterior side is a convex in shape. And this is a rough in structure. This border is called the posterior border, and it has the acromion has the two surface, the superior surface and the inferior surface. And the superior surface is little bit smooth in structure, is also is rough, but in the posterior surface is a two structures over here. In the interior surface, in the superior and interior border, this area is for the attachment of the deltoid bone, and the posterior border is for the attachment of the trapezius muscles, Just at the below of the surface, at the acromion end of the clavicle bone is a tubercle is here. This is called the conoid tubercle, and the conoid ligaments attach over here. And just at the lateral side of the conoid tubercle is a line here, and this line is called the trapezoid line, and this trapezoid line is for the attachment of the trapezoid ligament attachment. Okay, this is all about the clavicle bone. In the woman, the clavicle bone is little bit shorter in shape, is a more in thinner and less in curve. And in the woman, the acromion end of the clavicle bone is a little bit lower as compared of the male. So the shoulder of the male are more in the erect, in the upper, in the accurate level as compared of the female. The female, the shoulders are little bit downer in shape. So this is all about the we discuss more in detail about the clavicle bone, and this clavicle bone is mostly more prone for the fractures. Mostly when the person fall from the front side, accident from the front side, so the clavicle bone is mostly frequent prone for the fracture. So if you have some sort of the queries or any questions, you can email me, you can comment on my YouTube channel box. Thank you so much.